for EuroLeague, we do anything and everything for them. If you look across their social, everything from static design, kind of teasing upcoming games, to in-play content, all that editorialized content like top 10s, player interviews, things like that. We do all that content. Where we use Blackbird primarily is on game nights, which can be pretty hectic. You know, there's a EuroLeague and Euro Cup, which is kind of the Europa League equivalent. So some nights there will be, in the past, there's been kind of 12 Euro Cup matches and 10 EuroLeague matches or something on a night, and it's pretty chaotic. And we'd have multiple people, probably one person per game, working on each match, and then we generate variety of different match highlight packages from each. So there'll be your traditional 3 or 4 minute, which will sit on YouTube. Then there'll be a 2-minute version for Twitter. Then we'll have a news access one, which will be 5 minutes, pretty rough edited, and that's distributed to news agencies like SNTV to kind of recut themselves. So where Blackbird really helps with that is building this content on the go, really. I think if you look down in this little corner down here, so up here, this is for like Bayern Munich match against Monaco, I think this week actually, and there's 4 kind of renditions of the match highlights. And what that enables us to do is in the left-hand one, we'll be watching the live stream come in, and the guys are able to kind of edit as they go across all 3. So because we're distributing this content to broadcasters as well, it needs to be in broadcast quality. So down here on the left-hand side, we've got our different kind of export settings, and DNX being one of the HD versions as well. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of different places we push to. So there's different YouTube channels, one for EuroLeague, one for Euro Cup. We've got MPEG-4, which is your traditional kind of social content, which we'll publish. Then the broadcasters use like an Imogen platform to access all the content, so we can push directly to Imogen as well. So on top of the match highlights, we'll also kind of create the in-play content as well, which can be pushed out on social and distributed to the social team as well. So that's another element. And is
that shorter and simpler clips than the highlights then that are getting pushed out a bit quicker?
Yeah, that could be anything from like a 30-second, not even that, 20-second clip of a moment. So similar to like last night. So I'm a Spurs fan, and obviously last night Spurs scored 2 goals in 2 minutes in stoppage time. So, you know, those moments that people want to access, they want to watch, that content turn around quickly, that is what we would use Blackbird for, to push to social. And also any storyline content, like then we want to delve a little bit deeper into story. If there was Fenerbahce a couple of weeks ago had the most threes of the season or something, so we build quite a simple edit of all 21 threes in a row, that kind of content. And then EuroLeague also kind of leans quite heavily on branded content as well, so dunk of the night and things like that. And there's a lot of, I'm not sure you've mentioned this before, Ollie, or how, but there's a lot of pre-rolls and overlays we have to do for that content, and sometimes we use a lot of freelancers, so that can kind of be left up. Sometimes what used to happen is you put your overlay, you wouldn't be quite the right size or wouldn't be placed at the right time. Yeah. All that stuff's pre-programmed, so as soon as we put it on that button and it exports it, and you're more technical than me, but all that pre-roll, that post-roll, any kind of watermarks and stuff is all automated, which just speeds up the whole process. Because
absolutely, yeah. I mean, so for anyone who's listening, essentially the reason Blackbird can do so much there is because all of the publish functions, everything Alex is talking about multiple different file formats, multiple different destinations, those renders are happening within the media infrastructure. Right, what the user's doing in the browser is not a heavy lifting rendering tool. It's it's about flexibility and freedom to edit. So yeah, there's the ability to add pre-roll, post-roll, bumpers and slates, logo overlays, do custom aspect ratio publishing, and all of that. Yeah, as you said, Alex, can be fully automated inside the actual publish function itself. So yeah, the idea is take any complexity away from the user and make it easy and quick for them to create the actual content itself.
And we've got like quite a good technical infrastructure at IMG Studio. So there's things like box scores that have to be on the EuroLeague highlights and things like that. And we've got watch flows automated. So that content can be exported from a Chiron, drops into a watch folder, and then Blackbird is looking at it, sucks it up, and then we can add it to our content as well. So you've got these team v team shields at the start, which kind of say who's playing. That's all done in advance of matches. then you've got your highlights, and then there's these box scores at the end as well. So, and then if we push to YouTube, it's exactly the same rendition, but then there's like a YouTube kind of end card subscribe button we've got automated as well. And then, like I said, for EuroLeague, we do anything and everything. So we lean on this quite heavily for like archive as well. If we're doing a shoot with someone, we'll do like maybe do a rough edit in Blackbird and then bring it into Premiere when we're adding like the talking heads, any name supers, anything like that. But a lot of our, the majority of our content, and even like our rough editing is done within the Blackbird system. I think that's it, really.
Thanks. I mean, it's great to see. It's great for me to see, and I probably know more about it than anyone on the call. It's still really interesting, and I think it's that, I know you're going to show us some more, but that use case itself is a really great explanation of why lots of our customers use Blackbird. And it's it's a multifaceted thing. So it's about speed, the ability to do speed of turnaround of live, the ability to deliver branded, high quality, different kind of qualities of content out to different places. But one of the key things for us is exactly what you're talking about. It's the fact that you can have simple clipping, social, digital kind of content, and your highlights editing with multi-layers and effects and other kinds of advanced editing features in there. And also, push through using as a workflow tool and an offline edit, essentially, that's going to deliver back into, full craft finishing workflows as well. So it's great to see all of that within, one account use there. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And I mean, we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but the fact that we can use this in our browser and it's all in the cloud and everything, for EuroLeague particularly during COVID, because most of all these events are on the continent, they weren't really on the same COVID timescales as us, right? So when we were under lockdown, they weren't under lockdown, they're having matches, but we still need to cover those matches. So we could have a pretty small office presence, but we're still able to have basically the same output, really. There was no kind of drop in quality or drop in our service, simply because, and we pretty much lucked out. I don't think if we weren't using Blackbird at the time, we probably would have been by the end of the pandemic, because it is essential. So we kind of, like you're saying, being those early adopters there really, really helped us, especially for the EuroLeague project.
Yeah.
And then I'll briefly talk about, so this is for Prime UK. We create 20 to 30 minute highlights packages which sit on Amazon Prime. It would have been the kind of content that would have been before Prime bought the rights, would have been sitting on Sky Sports. Sky Sports would have all the live feeds, and then they have a daily wrap show. It's got like a British spin to it. So you can see here, I'm over a Dan Evans match. So because it's on Prime UK, the focus is always on British players. But this is a bit more of a traditional kind of broadcasty export that we use Blackbird for. We don't really use it. This is so it's...
Yeah, you can see we're down to 3 published destinations on the left.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I think we used to have one account that was called IMG Digital Account, and they would have all these different sports going in, types, and all these different people in it, and it was just like completely overwhelming. So what we tend to do, and I probably should have touched on that at the beginning, is if we have an event or a client, we will just separate all those things out, because we have some clients who will want to check the content before we publish it and send it to them. So we give them access to and they can just edit as we go. So for Prime, it's the US Open. We covered Roland Garros last year as well, all the Masters events. And where this differs is we will have either voiceover links, so we'll have a remote voiceover. They'll send their VO over in WAV form. We can just bring that into Blackbird as well. Or we also, because IMG do some of these bigger events as well, we will insert studio links. And that workflow is slightly different as well. So we'll be using EVS at IMG Studios, and they'll be pushing those clips via EVS into Blackbird. So I think we've got like a...
So I know that for anyone who's interested at that point, we're taking live streams in, and at the same time, essentially just watching the near line that's out off the back of EVS. So all of that content, and for the user, they don't know what's happening in the background from a technical point of view, but essentially it allows both of those pools of media to be mixed and used immediately. Yeah,
it enables us to kind of let the studio team we can liaise with the studio team. They can record their links, so they can just push them out via EVS, and then they normally it's a bad example because it's a new year and we've not done an event that way, but normally populates in the Blackbird upload folder, which we've got on our nearline, and it's a growing file, like these streams are growing as well. And yeah, this is a pretty simple kind of piece of work, really. It just tends to be quite one long file per day, and that gets pushed directly to Prime UK. Doesn't go on social or anything like that. It just sits on Prime. So that's kind of all there is to say about that one. But it's quite an interesting difference. We really use.
Yeah, you can see it's a very different piece of content. So obviously, when we were looking at the EuroLeague and we had the different use cases, you know, the complexity there is in two things really. I think obviously we've got, you know, the branding aspect of multiple different types of content to multiple places and using branded assets and graphic overlays and things like that. And obviously the complexity in terms of getting the right thing to the right place as a publish output. But I can see from the edit you've got here, obviously, you know, in this piece of content, it's the length, it's the duration and the quantity of media that we're dealing with. And obviously there's a fair bit of audio editing going on in this. And as anyone who's ever tried to do editing before knows, the audio is the difficult bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, just having this will sound crazy probably, but when we first started working with you guys, I think there might have been other like cloud people operators out there, but there was like no way of seeing waveform or anything like that, and that was like by my mind. And it still happens a little bit now. So the audio definitely helps us here as well, and the ability to, because we've got a half an hour show for those bigger events, we won't just have a self editor on it. We'll have a producer on those as well. And the producer, obviously a day of tennis is a long day, right? It could be 12 hours and the producer wants to see the edit as it's going. So this really enables us, wherever the producer is, just to kind of see how the edit's going really, and make sure that, that they can kind of review as we go. So it's pushed out as soon as the day's play's finished. We can kind of get that final day, those final links in for the day, and that can be pushed to Prime.
And I've got just one question, because it's relevant to what we're talking about, Alex.
Yeah.
Someone asking a bit more detail about, and which I can talk about how the voiceover comes in. Mm-hmm. But they're asking, are you handling multiple languages here? Obviously, I can see 3 stereo pairs on the edit at this point. Is it? Do you know? Are you doing English comms? Are you doing other languages as well?
It's just English. So this example here has got a studio link. You can see that there.
Yeah.
It's just English, but we have kind of used VO in 2 different ways. So we used to record it direct into Blackbird. So pre-COVID, we would have got a voiceover artist in, they would have watched the edit and they would have voiced it on the go, essentially.
Yeah.
But post-pandemic, or towards the end of the pandemic, we now just the VO person, because a lot of VO people have got this out at home now, it's actually a lot easier for them to just do a WAV file and we just upload it into the system that way. So yeah, just English, but we have had occasions, for example, where we would produce a bit of content and we would have multiple languages on it, not for this project. And that way you can kind of sit here, I think we set the export settings so it'd only be exporting tracks 3 and 4, which have English, and then the next one would be 5 and 6, because that would have German on it.
And I can just expand on that a bit to make sure, we've covered that one. So essentially, as Alex touched on there's 2 ways to get voiceover content in, or any kind of media like this. One is that and I'll talk a bit more about this in a bit, but we can ingest it as we would ingest a live stream or any type of file or audio media or image or overlay or anything like that. And when I say ingest, what I mean is read and make it editable. We don't move that stuff to the cloud. So all of IMG's live streams are still within their network and their infrastructure. Or as Alex said, you can actually record voiceover straight into the Blackbird timeline. So there's 2 options there about how you do that, but once it's in there, the Blackbird editor has up to 36 audio tracks. So hopefully, I think more than anyone's ever needed at this point. And any one of those 36 tracks can be manipulated, edited, have transitions on it, keyframeable pan and level control. And as Alex said as well, there's also routing options out. So when you do a publish, we've got options to flatten down to a standard stereo pair output, or to actually route different tracks out to alternative tracks in the actual file that ends up being delivered. So if you are handling multiple languages, you could have multiple stereo pairs for your different language commentary or voiceover tracks, And when you publish, we could essentially give you multiple versions of that content with the right tracks routed to the right place for each endpoint. So there's quite a lot of flexibility about how audio is handled inside Blackbird in that kind of workflow.
Yeah, I mean, on EuroLeague, for the broadcasters, we have to give everyone an English language version and an ambient version. So that's one way. It's obviously not a language, but that's one way of getting two exports from that one file. I think someone did ask about, could you record direct into Blackbird on one of the questions. Yeah, we did. I think I did touch on that. Yeah, we did used to do that. We still could. I think it's a slightly different version of opening Blackbird in the browser. Is that right? There used to be one that was like VO record, I think.
There's a little microphone on just above your timeline next. That's the one. Yeah. So if you tap that, it will essentially use your laptop microphone and record directly in through your browser. Obviously, what's an option, as Alex was saying, if you want something higher quality than your laptop microphone might be, is that you can have an external microphone or even a USB desk, that would allow you to do some equalizing, compressor limiting and things like that on the way into the edit. So yeah, there's a few options there, but it's a direct to browser record of the voiceover.
Yeah, we used to have we have a lip mic and then just like a mini USB kind of mixer that you plug straight into your laptop, and you can just do it straight off the lip mic there, and it's pretty good quality. But like I said, most of the VO artists now that we work with have got a pretty good home setup as well. So
yeah,
it enabled us to be a bit more flexible. We can have a completely remote workflow with this project, really. And because a lot of the events we cover are through the night, getting freelancers or people to work on it can be quite challenging. So when you say to a VO artist, well, you've just got to get out of bed for 10 minutes, it's like quite easy. So it's a lot easier to get freelancers on that as well. And the final one I was going to talk about, I realise we're kind of getting close to time here, but
no, don't worry about time.
Is the Open, which again is slightly different. Like we do everything we kind of would do for EuroLeague, but the Open's nice because it's probably the one event we do each year when it's the biggest thing going on in the world of sport, and there's all eyes on it. And we basically insert our team. We work within the RNA's existing content team. We've done it for a few years now, probably since about 2015. Producing highlights packages, in-play content, all the press conferences, and that work has kind of increased during COVID, because during COVID there wasn't as much accredited journalists on site and things like that. So we had to, every single press conference that took place at the Open had to be like top and tailed. These big 20-minute files just getting churned out and being pushed onto the Open's media center as well. But the main focus of what we do for the Open really is the in-play clips that we create. So the RNA can use a set number of, use about 12 minutes a day, I think it is, and they're pushing out the content each day to social, to Twitter, and we're completely responsible for that. So I won't tweet anything, but as you can see, there's like some slightly different export settings down the side. So that again, they want the full HD stuff for DNX and the MPEG 4. We also push direct to Stream UK, which is what their website sits on. So we're pushing directly to their website, but also Twitter as well. So all these moments here on the right hand side, these are all things we've pushed to Twitter Media Studio. I think on a final day of the Open. So we normally produce there's probably between 40 and 50 in-play clips a day being pushed out. Then
quite a lot of content, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a lot when you've got, so you normally have about 3 people on site, but when you drop it on the bug, it will then hopefully, sorry, 1 second, it's already in there. I think what will happen, so then it opens up a box where you can write the tweet and everything, which is really helpful, and is really, there's real kind of focus on, you've got to get that first tee shot of the day out quicker than anyone else.
Yeah.
You've got to get that winning moment, which is I've got up there, of Morikawa this year, out on social as quick as possible. Because the RNA kind of, there's obviously a lot of broadcast partners like Sky and the NBC and stuff, and the RNA want to own those moments as well. Yeah. That is where, like I said, it's a nice event to work on, because 1, you're on location, 2, you work within the RNA's team, which is a nice experience, but also working on that one event where all eyes are on it really, and we producing up here, things like player highlights, we do like round in 60 seconds. So the best few players, Tiger's best round in 60 seconds. Then there'll be various clips, all the press conferences and things like that. And from that, we're pushing direct to web and social. We don't, with EuroLeague and Amazon Prime, there's some element of other human interaction. So if EuroLeague, we're distributing the content to the EuroLeague social team. They will review it, they will publish it. For Amazon Prime, it's similar. It sits on their platform and they publish it. Whereas for the Open, we are solely responsible for distributing that content quickly and pushing it to Facebook, Twitter, etc.
Yeah, well, that's again, it's a familiar workflow for us. So we have our customers who work in the broadcast realm, and we see workflows very similar to what you've talked about with the Amazon Prime Tennis and the EuroLeague. But some of our customers who are leagues and federations or clubs and teams as well in multiple different sports, exactly the same position, right? There's obviously broadcast rights, and then there's often smaller amounts of content that are allowed to be published from the actual federations and so on. And we've got a few of our customers where maximizing the reach of that content is the most important thing. So getting those quality moments out as quickly as you possibly can is important. And obviously because we've got the flexibility to do different types of content production, and we talked about automated branding and publishing and everything like that. Blackbird's the fastest way for you to be able to turn around live clips and get that out, and as well as obviously having the ability to do the more complex content as well.
I guess the last thing really to mention on it, we work quite closely with the audio team in our larger department. They also do the open radio. So there's like an audio, we sometimes send them just kind of WAV files of the commentary from the world feed they can insert as
audio only as an output,
which is always really helpful as well.
Thank you to everyone who's joined. Thanks for the time. Alex, a big thanks for opening the door and letting us all have a look at what you're doing and how you're doing it. It's really, really interesting.